Hey there, friend. Welcome to my January 20th. Yes, you are in the right place. It's not the wrong video. We're just starting in the exact same place that we did yesterday. You'll notice I've got some different clothing on. I'm actually freshly showered today. So I wrapped up my morning routine. I ate, I went and showered, kind of got myself ready, and I have remaining here. I still have the card out because I was going to show you that really quickly. But then we're going to actually head over to the table, have a little bit more of a comfortable sit down over there. And yeah, I'm going to share some of the things that came up during the reading during my routine, my morning ritual here, because I really loved it. I really loved the meat of it, what was there. So I'll talk about who this came from, which part of my morning ritual. But first and foremost, before I finally clean up everything over here, I pulled the strength card today, which, if you guys have been following along, is also very fitting. I basically just asked for, I was like totally open today, any type of general guidance would be wonderful. And the strength card is pretty much what it sounds like. It is specifically talking about a deep inner strength and courage. So especially when things get tough, being able to tap into that. So as you know, definitely fitting for kind of just in general where I'm at, not in like a major struggle period, but there are definitely some things, and we talked about those over the past couple days. So I wanted to share that. Also, the visual here is a mama bear, just like the immense strength that she has within her, but also it's not purely out of aggression or anger or hatred or anything like that. It's more out of a protective sort of energy. But with that, I'm gonna get cleaned up here and we'll head on over to have a little sit down chat. All right, all done there. I'm gonna get us set up over here. All right, let's get that nice lighting. It's been a while since I did a sit down video over here. All right, probably hear some dog noises as everybody kind of shifts as I shift. So the piece of my ritual this morning that really resonated with me was that of both the Daily Stoic was very good again today as well. And then the snippet from, all right, the dogs are finally settled. I think we should be good. The snippet from the Tools of Titans, and it was from Scott Adams, who is the creator of Dilbert, the comic strip, which is funny because I used to read the comics every single day as a kid. You know, like get the newspaper, have my bowl of cereal or whatever, have the newspaper there. I would read the sports section and the comics every single day. And just like in general, how interesting is that, right? Like I'm 33 now, so that was 20 years ago when I was doing 20, damn, it's a long time. 20 years ago when I was doing that. But isn't it strange to think that like my kids won't experience that? And it's like a relatively short time frame. But to think that it's just like so different. I actually just saw the other day, I think it was on LinkedIn actually, but there was like a meme or whatever of a kid sitting there eating cereal, like reading the back of the cereal box, and was like, this is how we spent our childhood, or this is what we did during our childhood. And I was like, oh my God, yes. Like that's what we did. We read cereal boxes, and I read the sports section and the comics every single day. So just kind of interesting how things change, and especially within, like, again, a relatively short window of time. But with that, I didn't like Dilbert. I thought it was stupid. I didn't get it. And of course, I remember an older cousin telling me, he's like, "You're just not old enough to understand it." And I was like so annoyed by that. I was like, "No, I'm smart. Like, shut up." Maybe that was true. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know. Apparently Dilbert was, very successful and well loved by many. So he very well may have been right. Didn't like Dilbert when I was a kid. Never really read it because of that. Scott Adams, in this section of the book, loved it. It's only like a few pages, and Tim shares just like a couple little instances of, what they talked about in their interviews, but I loved it. I loved his outlook. I loved the things that he touched on. And so I'm going to share some of those things here. So there's 3 main things that he shared that I want to touch on. Those 3 things are, and this is in my words, but following your energy, listening to your body, and the recipe for success, which may be different than you expect. All right, number 1, following your energy. Now, this is my terminology for it. This is a belief that I have, something that I feel very strongly about, something that I've tried to implement in my life, something that I talk about on social media, and something that I've done with my clients. And the word energy is the word that makes sense to me, but you can replace that with a few different words. Joy, excitement. But the idea is following where you are pulled. And so specifically, not trying to go in the direction of anything because you're supposed to, or because somebody else told you to, or society tells you to, whatever. So the way that he talks about this is he started blogging. And something that he noted, so these are his words, is goals are for losers, systems are for winners. Or maybe it was the other way around. Losers have goals, winners have systems. And what he meant by this, what means by this, is that you, like, doing things for the long term is always going to be a recipe for success. Now, I'm using a terminology, that's not what we're talking about later. But his example was with his blogging, it wasn't something that was, writing was not something that was going to bring him in much more income at the current moment in time. And he said he did a poor job of explaining this to his wife at the time, but he had this understanding that if he wrote and got better at writing and just, did so through repetition and put that out there in the world, blogging, it's not just something he's doing in a daily journal, it's something that's out there, that it would help him build a very useful, marketable skill set, as well as potentially having something, a portfolio of sorts. And so he wasn't worried about it being good necessarily, but he was focused on working that muscle and doing the thing and showing up, and had this understanding that that thing could eventually lead to bigger and better things. This is not how society thinks or teaches us. Society teaches us to know what is going to create an immediate return, what is going to help us in the short term And this is very quickly and easily received by us because our brains and our survival nature, the way that our brain is wired, is to meet our needs and to feel secure. So by giving us short-term solutions, we are going to jump on that because that is literally our biology, our physiology, is to do the thing that will make us feel safe. So if we are being promised that, then we will take that. So he talks about the importance of building these systems and then seeing what can come from it. So he kind of laid out how writing eventually got him to the place that he is now. You know, it just opened doors along the way that wouldn't have been available to him had he not started writing. Now, before moving on to the next one, I just want to quickly mention that I have a couple friends that have a very similar path. The blogger friends that I have now have had new things, opportunities come into their life because of what they were sharing and how that resonated with people and what the response was. So there eventually was a demand for them and their skill set and their energy, who they are, based on what they were doing. And so this is kind of where it comes back to what I like, you know, how it makes sense to me is following your energy. These friends that I have, they just did what felt right to them. It was, you know, one of them, she was kind of like struggling at a full-time job, having issues there, and writing has always been kind of her happy place. And so she started writing and she put that out there on a blog and wasn't expecting anything to come from it, but because she put herself out there, others started resonating, and now she has a business a few years later. So by following her energy, just by knowing what felt right to her and going and doing that, rather than building out some plan of this is how I'm going to start a business or I'm going to write so that this happens, she just followed what felt good to her, what felt right to her. She wasn't worried about the outcome, and quite honestly wasn't even thinking as far as Scott Adams here in terms of like, this thing could make me marketable or could open up doors one day. So that is number one. Follow your energy, what lights you up, your excitement, where you are pulled. Number two is listen to your body. I like this because this is actually it's kind of like a nice transition from one into two and isn't altogether different, at least not to me. So listening to your body. So we talk about listening to your intuition, following your gut, going with your gut quite a bit. I'm a huge proponent of that. I talk about that, but something that doesn't get nearly the attention that all that does is this idea of listening to your body. Now, if you are a big thinker and deep feeler, then this should be of high interest to you because this is something that can really, really shift your experience of life. This has changed my life. This is a big part of what I do with clients, what I've done with clients in the past. And so just real quick before I dive into that, I want to mention that when I say big thinkers, deep feelers, a lot of times I'm talking about empaths and highly sensitive people. If you don't know what those things are, but you kind of resonate with the idea of being a big thinker, deep feeler, I would highly recommend you check those things out. You can literally just Google them. A highly sensitive person is a little bit more of a newer term, but it's actually really interesting because being a highly sensitive person is a trait. It is a biological thing that you have. So this is not, it's essentially, there's science there. It is proven that 20% of the population is an HSP. And this is also for animals in general. So it's a really, really interesting trait. Again, you can go read up on it, but if you're not sure if you're an HSP, but being a big thinker, deep feeler resonates with you, go below. I'll include the link to hsperson.com, which provides a very quick and easy test for you to check out. Now, why do I kind of mention that? Why is that my preamble before going into the listening to your body portion? Well, if you are indeed a highly sensitive person, or if you're just a big thinker and deep feeler in general, being in touch with your body is game-changing. As I said before, I will use that term because that is what it is. Like that's the best way to get across the importance and the impact of listening to your body. So what do we mean by that? It is getting familiar with sensations. So we talk all the time about the importance of thoughts and emotions, and I heavily agree that those are things that we should be very conscious of and aware of. But what about our bodily sensations? This goes overlooked because, especially in the Western world, we are obsessed with the mind. We are obsessed with the brain, and we have this, there's a hubris about, how smart we are as humans and how much of that comes from our incredible brain. And while all of that is true, we have a lot more wisdom throughout the body as well. So the brain is useful, yes, but it can also sabotage you in a lot of ways as well, because it is wired for survival, as I mentioned before, whereas your body has, while it's obviously connected to your brain, there are different sensations and things that your body can give you that will differ a little bit from what, the input, the feedback, the things that your mind is giving you. So this can be a feeling of tension. This can be a feeling of excitement, like your chest opens up or you can breathe more. It can be a quick rush of adrenaline. It can be like somebody punched you in the gut. And these things are actually happening quicker than what is happening in your brain. Like conscious thought comes after this. Now, you may be sitting there and be like, oh, I don't know. I don't feel like that's very strong for me. We all have it. The thing is, we don't pay attention to it because we go about our lives in such a fast, hurried way. And because we're always associating with the brain and we're staying so much in here that we really don't give anything below the neckline the time of day. We don't have any awareness of our body, and so we miss the signs and the signals, the information that it is sharing with us. So when I say that we have a lot of wisdom in the body, I know that for some people that might sound a little bit woo-woo or a little crazy, but it's a biological fact. We are animals, we are mammals. This is a part of our nervous systems and our experience. So the first step would be to attune to that a little bit more. And I'm not gonna go fully into this here because this isn't what this video is about necessarily, but I wanted to at least give the high level for kind of like what this phrase, listen to the body, even means. So just bringing more awareness to your sensations in a given moment can be really helpful. And so this is kind of like a muscle that you build over time to the point where you can notice what is happening in your body at all times. You're still very aware of what's going on in your mind, but you also have this now added component of your body. So listening to your body, what does that mean in an experience? So I had a conversation with a friend yesterday, and she was talking about how she was really looking for some mentoring and really like want to move her business forward in some ways this year. And so she was really kind of like open to the next person that came into her sphere that would be helpful for her, that could kind of fulfill this role. And so she just happened to sync up with a business coach, and she was like, oh, this is great. This is exactly what I was looking for. Perfect. Everything, it's logically everything makes sense. But she realized that as things were progressing with this coach, they were starting to not feel as good. She was having a lot of just kind of like tension around it. She was waking up with anxiety in the morning, just kind of stressed out about the cost of it and the approach, and just like in general didn't feel good. But she was like, well, I have to do this, right? Like I was really looking for something. She seems to be a good fit. And she was rationalizing, she's over rationalizing what her body was telling her, which is, this is not a good fit. And so often, because of the world that, again, especially in the Western world that we've grown up in, we have the mind on this pedestal and are taught to not trust ourselves and our intuition and our bodies. Fortunately, she had an experience where the day that she was going to sign with the coach, she had a session with like a spiritual healer in the morning, and felt way more aligned with that person, and just had a moment when working with her. I was like, wait a second, this is who I need to be working with, not this other person. And she went with that, even though it didn't make as much sense, because she kind of like needs the coach, she needs the business advice, all those things. This other avenue, this other person, this other path resonated more deeply with her and her body. And so she said immediately after that, when she made that kind of like energetic decision or choice in her head, that her body immediately relaxed. She kind of like was able to breathe a sigh of relief, and it felt like this heavy weight was lifted off of her shoulders. That, my friends, is listening to your body. Couldn't come up with a better or more perfect example. All right, so moving on to number 3, our final piece of wisdom from Scott Adams, the creator of Dilbert, today. I love this one as well. I don't have a favorite out of these. They're all so good. And what's cool about this, like for him, is that I'm totally going to go buy his book, which maybe I'll throw that either an image in here or a link below, because I can't think of what it's called in the moment. But yeah, I'm going to go buy his book because I resonate so much with him and the way he talked about these things. How to find success. And Tim Ferris actually kind of noted this as well, and was like, this is like more or less how he lives his life. So he really liked kind of highlighting this. And this is something that I am right in alignment with as well, and something that I've actually been sitting with a lot recently. So it was really affirming for me to read this, because I haven't really I've been trying to figure out a good way to put this into words or how it makes sense in the grand scheme of things. But the idea is that there's 2 ways, Scott says there's 2 ways to become successful. 1, become the best at something. 2, become really good at a couple different things. 2, 3, 4 things. And by really good, he says, roughly in the top 25%. Totally agree. Immediately I was like, yes, that definitely resonates with me. I would wholeheartedly agree. And what he said about becoming the path number 1 is to become the best. He said that's nearly impossible, which is totally true. You have to be Michael Jordan, you have to be LeBron James, you have to be Tom Brady, the best writer around, the best filmmaker. Becoming that person is highly unlikely, and it's also incredibly undiversified. So if you go down that path and for whatever reason want to jump ship at any point, you're kind of screwed, because all of your eggs have gone into that basket and you've got nothing else. So I totally agreed with that. And the way that I've thought about this recently is that becoming an expert is highly overrated. And, I'm 33 years old, I'm a millennial, and I've watched the world change, shifting into the age of technology. And with that, we're still kind of stuck in these older systems of education specifically, and how we are taught to be successful, or what leads to success. And essentially what we are taught in school, what kids are still taught in school, which is unfortunately already outdated and is no longer true. But it's going to take a while for the education system to catch up. Yeah, I can make a whole nother video on that, because I really truly hope that it catches up sooner rather than later, because it's doing a lot of kids a disservice. This isn't even a rant about college. This is about grade school. There's just so many missed opportunities, and the world is going to need every opportunity it gets. I digress. The idea that success is about becoming an expert. That is how you reach success. That's what schooling gives us. You become really good at this one thing, you pick an expertise, you pick a field, you pick a career, and you just become the expert in that field. And you're good, you're golden, life is gonna be a breeze for you. You can go retire on a beach somewhere when you're 60, and you'll have no problems. Now, while there may be a shred of truth in there still, the world has changed greatly, and it's far from the optimal path to success. You're far more likely to become successful, especially in the age of technology, when you are really good at a couple things, 2, 3, 4 things. Because now you're a little bit diversified. Now you can combine those things in a unique way, which is what Scott Adams talks about. He said that, he's like, I'm not the best artist out there, but I can draw cartoons better than most people. And I'm also not the greatest writer out there, but I can write better than most people. I'm funnier than most people. I'm not going to be a stand-up comedian because I'm not the funniest guy, but I can insert enough to where it is funny. And then kind of mention that he's got a little bit of, he's like above average business acumen as well. And so that combination of things led him to the success that he had with Dilbert. And I just love that, because I think that in this day and age, like I said, he was mainly covering the base of, like, if you combine these 2 or 3 things that you're really good at in a unique way, you can be successful in that, which I'm like 100% agree with, definitely true. But I do think there's this other avenue now where you can keep those 3 things in parallel. Like, you don't even have to necessarily combine them, because of the age of technology, because of things becoming more flexible, remote work, like the gig economy. You can be good at a few things and have a few different lines of work, a few different incomes, and you can become very successful that way. So this was really, really exciting for me to read. I'm going to continue. This is just kind of me like spitballing and going off of what I read and just kind of my excitement and passion from that. But I'm excited to continue kind of like letting that marinate and sitting with that a little bit, and probably writing or talking about it a little bit more. And then also just experimenting with that myself. Like, that is very much where I'm going in my life. Kind of going back into the corporate world, but kind of also having this creative outlet, sharing on YouTube, starting the foundations of community and things like that. It's really exciting. It's really expansive, because I believe that, and this is specifically for big thinkers and deep feelers, because becoming the expert at something just doesn't really fit the way that we want to live our lives, with more freedom, wanting to experience more things, more places, more people, more cultures, have the freedom of location, the freedom, more freedom of time to actually be able to experience life and to just be able to experience everything that life has to offer. It's exciting because becoming an expert in the traditional sense doesn't really lead to those things, whereas this other way of becoming successful does very much lend itself to these things. So fun, so exciting, I love it. I guess I'm curious for you, which of these things you loved, if you had a favorite out of the three things. We talked about following your energy, listening to your body, and the recipe for success, not becoming an expert. Yeah, curious what resonated most with you, what things you have questions about, anything that you'd like me to elaborate on with any one of these given points. I would absolutely love to know. Otherwise, thank you for hanging out. I appreciate you, and I'll talk to you soon. I actually ended up having a change of plans in the evening. I was going to go drive, but I happened to have an interview schedule kind of last minute for tomorrow and wanted to make sure I was really kind of up to the task and brushed up on some things that I wanted to. That combined with some gross weather here just seemed to make sense. And so, yeah, I stayed in here. I was feeling a little bit anxious, but overall really excited that I would be getting this next interview at a company that I'm pretty excited about. So with that, that'll wrap up my day, and I will see you tomorrow.